All right, today we're going to break down one of the oldest and most powerful forms of storytelling out there, drama. Seriously, it's the engine behind everything from ancient Greek epics to that Netflix show you can't stop watching. So, what's the secret? What gives it that staying power? Let's find out. So, let's start with a really big question. We all know that feeling of getting totally lost in a good book, right? But what actually happens when those words leap off the page and onto a stage? What's that magic ingredient that turns a simple story into a live event? Well, the answer is kind of hiding in plain sight, right in the word's origin. Drama comes from a Greek word that means a deed or an act. So it's not just about what people say, it's about what they do. It is literally the art of action. And that single idea, that makes all the difference. Okay, so to really get to the heart of this, here's our roadmap. We're going to start with what makes drama, well, drama. Then we'll look at the blueprint of a play, take a quick race through its history, meet its two iconic forms, take a little trip around the globe, and finally, we'll see why this ancient art form is, believe it or not, more relevant than ever. First up, what really is the core of drama? Think of it like a unique collaborative triangle. You need the story, or the text. You need an actor to bring it to life. And so importantly, you need an audience there to witness it. It's a story being told and experienced in the exact same moment, in the exact same space. So, how are these stories actually put together? Well, like any good building, every play has a kind of blueprint. And as we're about to see, there are a few universal parts, the very DNA of dramatic storytelling, that have been used for thousands of years. And here it is, the most classic blueprint of all, the five-act structure. First, you get the exposition, which just sets the scene and tells us what's going on. Then the rising action kicks in, building up all that tension and conflict. The climax? That's the big, explosive turning point. Then you have the falling action, which deals with the immediate aftermath. And finally, the resolution, where everything gets tied up, for better or worse. Now, what's really cool is how characters actually communicate on stage. A monologue is pretty straightforward. It's just a long speech one character gives to others. But a soliloquy? That's totally different. That's a character all alone, thinking out loud, and it gives us a direct pipeline into their brain. And an aside, that's like a quick secret wink to us, the audience. Each one gives us a totally different piece of the puzzle. All right, buckle up. We're about to take a super high-speed tour through more than 2,000 years of theater history. We're going to focus on the major revolutions that completely changed the game. Our whirlwind tour has 4 major stops. We'll start in ancient Greece, where it all began. Then we'll jump to Shakespeare's London, where creativity just exploded. After that, the 19th century, when drama started looking a lot more like real life. And finally, the 20th century, when a bunch of artists decided to just throw the rulebook out the window. Our first revolutionary is this guy, Aeschylus. Before him, a play was usually just one actor talking with the chorus. His huge idea? Add a second actor. I know it sounds so simple, right? But that one change created dialogue. Dialogue created conflict, and just like that, he basically invented the play as we know it today. A total game changer. Okay, let's jump way forward to the Renaissance and, of course, William Shakespeare. The man's genius was in creating drama that truly spoke to everyone. At a place like the Globe Theatre, his incredible characters and poetic language were just as thrilling to the rich nobles in the fancy seats as they were to the common folk standing down in the pit. Then, in the 19th century, drama got a serious reality check, thanks to Henrik Ibsen. He basically shifted the spotlight away from kings and gods and pointed it right at the living rooms of ordinary, middle-class people. His plays tackled real, thorny social issues, proving that the drama of everyday life could be just as gripping. And then came the 20th century radicals like Bertolt Brecht. Now, most playwrights want you to get completely lost in the story. Brecht? He wanted the exact opposite. He used all these clever techniques to constantly remind you, hey, you're watching a play, this isn't real. His goal wasn't just to make you feel something, it was to make you think critically about what you were seeing. So all throughout this long history, 2 fundamental kinds of drama have stood side by side. You know them, they're represented by those 2 iconic masks of the theater. On one hand, you have tragedy. This is all about watching a great person's downfall, asking these huge questions about fate and justice, and it pretty much always ends in disaster. On the other hand, you have comedy. This is about ordinary people in funny situations, making fun of society, and it almost always ends on a happy note.
usually with a wedding. So you have to wonder, why do we actually enjoy watching a tragedy? The ancient philosopher Aristotle had a theory. He said that watching these stories creates pity and fear in us, which leads to something he called catharsis, a kind of cleansing or purging of those heavy emotions. It's that weirdly satisfying feeling of release you get after a really powerful, sad story. Now, it is so important to remember that everything we've talked about so far has been just a quick look at the Western tradition. At the very same time, incredibly rich and ancient dramatic forms were popping up all over the world. I mean, if we took a quick world tour, we'd see India's Sanskrit drama, which mixes acting, dance, music, the whole shebang. We'd see Japan's slow, beautiful, and poetic No theater, and the super dynamic and vibrant kabuki. And of course, there's Chinese opera, this mind-blowing mix of singing, acrobatics, and martial arts. It just proves that the urge to perform and tell stories is a deeply human thing, everywhere.
And that brings us to our final question. We've looked at the past, but why does any of this still matter to us, right here, right now? Well, here's the biggest takeaway. That ancient blueprint we talked about, plot, character conflict, that is the very same engine that powers the movies and TV shows you love today. The screen might have replaced the stage for many of us, but the fundamental rules of dramatic storytelling, they're absolutely timeless. And you know, drama can be so much more than just entertainment. Visionaries like Augusto Boal created something called the theater of the oppressed, where the line between the audience and the actors completely disappears. People become spect actors, and they get to act out and rehearse real solutions to real-world problems. It proves the stage can actually be a powerful laboratory for social change. So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If drama has always been a mirror held up to society, reflecting its values, its fears, its biggest hopes, what do the stories we're telling on our stages and on our screens today say about who we are right now? What do you see in that reflection?